So today we'll try to cover these two topics: linear combinations of normal random variable and approximating distributions with the normal distribution. That is, some distributions which are not normal can be approximated by normal distribution. So that we will see in the second part. But the first part is the linear combinations of normal random variable. So in general, we have seen this. Specific, we will see now. Okay, we have already seen linear combinations of random variables. Okay, so we'll try to cover these two, and then next time we will see these distributions related to normal, which are T distribution, chi distribution, and F distributions. Okay, so this whole things we will cover in two lectures. So first, linear combinations. So this is just a repetition of the things we have already done. Okay, so this is one function, not a linear combination, because this is function of a random variable. X is a random variable, so its function is ax plus b. We define like this, and wherein we are constant. So we can see that if x is a normal random variable, or even if it is random variable having mean mu and standard deviation sigma, okay, variance sigma square, then we can see that ax plus b has mean a mu plus b and standard deviation a square sigma square. This is variance rather. This is variance. This is variance. This is mean. So ax plus b has mean a mu plus b, and variance is a square sigma square. And therefore, we can approximate, or rather we can say that this function is equivalent to normal distribution whose mean is a mu plus b and variance is a square sigma square. Okay. Now, in particular, you can see that if a is equal to 1 upon sigma, if a is equal to, sorry, if a is equal to 1 upon sigma and b is equal to minus mu upon sigma, then this y is nothing but normal variable, which we know that that is x minus mu upon sigma, which is generally denoted by capital Z. Okay.
Sir, how A can be 1 upon sigma and B can be mu upon minus mu upon sigma? So it is an assumption or it is
A
a...
equal to 1 upon sigma. If we take A is equal to 1 upon sigma and B is equal to minus mu upon, because here what we are assuming? We are simply assuming A and B are constants. Okay.
Yeah.
So if A and B are constant, we know that sigma is constant, mu is constant, sigma is constant, and therefore A is equal to 1 upon sigma will also be a constant, and B will be another constant.
So this is the assumption that we are assuming that A is equal to 1
Assumption
upon sigma.
This is if. Okay.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
A is equal to this and B is equal to this, then this Y will be normal variable. Okay. This will be standard normal variable. This capital Z is equal to x minus mu upon sigma is standard normal variable. In this case, the mean becomes 0 and variance become 1. Okay. So in this situation, this y will be equal to n 0 1. when A is equal to 1 upon sigma and B is equal to minus mu upon sigma. So this is a geometry, just this is your x and then this is ax plus b. So ax plus b become a also normal distribution, and this x is also normal. Both are normal, but definitely we can see different figures. Okay, because the mean and variances are changed now. Okay, so sum of two independent normal random variables. So we have two random variables, in fact normal. X1, it is a normal variable having mean mu1 and variance sigma 1 square. And similarly, x2 is having mean mu2 and variance sigma 2 square. So if you simply add, we take sum of these two, that is x1 plus x2. Okay, then it is a normal variable having mean mu1 plus mu2 and variance sigma 1 square plus sigma 2. Because we have already seen, if you add two random variables like x1 plus x2, then how to find mu and how to find variance. This we have already seen. Okay, so we are using those things. Okay, so mean is simply add the mean of x1 and x2. And in case of variance, we know that, for example, in case of y, say y is equal to ax plus b, then we know that variance of y is equal to a square variance of, a square variance of x. So using these results, we can prove that x1 plus x2 is having mean mu1 plus mu2 and variance sigma 1 square plus sigma 2 square. So this is just simply adding the mean and adding the variance. So this is an important thing we will see a little later, that even if the variables x1 and x2 are not normal distribution, normal random variables, their sum may be normal random variable. Okay, but then in that case, or rather it is saying slightly different, not independent. Okay, so what I was saying was it comes a little later. This is slightly different. Different in the sense that if x1 and x2 are independent, then we know that we can find the variance easily, just adding the variance of x1 and x2. But if they are dependent, then also sum will be normally distributed, but the variance, obtaining variance is a little difficult. Yeah, because we have to find the covariance between the two random variables. Okay, so we cannot find the variance easily, but if they are independent, we can find the variance easily. Okay, so this,
just one thing. Many students, I think, will not know what is covariance of two random variables. So if you can explain in short, then I think it will help a lot.
We have seen although we have seen, let me just give this result. So covariance of x1, x2, let me write in x1, x2. So this is expectation of x minus ex, sorry, x1 minus ex1 into x2 minus ex2. So this is the expression with the help of this, we can calculate covariance between x1 and x2. And then EX1, I think everybody knows EX, expectation. So in case of discrete, it is equal to summation x fx, where what is fx? Fx is PMF, probability mass function, and x is the variable. Okay, so in this way we can find ex. So if we know random variable x1, x2, we can find ex1, ex2, and then we just again apply e. Okay, so we can find this value. So this is in fact the dependency value between the two dependent variables x1 and x2. Okay.
Sir, EX1 and EX2, we can say that they are means,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
It is mean of x1 and this is mean of x2. So now let us see linear combination. So what we have n number of random variables, 1 to n. Okay, and these are all normal random variables. You can see that n mu I sigma I square. So x1 is a random variable, normal random variable having mean mu1, variance sigma 1 square. Likewise x2 mu2 sigma 2 square, and so on. So these are all normal random variables. We have n number of normal random variables. So if you take a linear combination of all these, okay, a1 x1 plus a2 x2 plus a3 x3 plus an xn, okay, and then some constant plus b, okay, then we can prove that, or it is proved that this variable is a normal random variable, again having mean mu and variance sigma square, where mu is given by this relation. So mu is simply, we just find mean mean of x1, mean of x2, xn, okay, multiply them by a1, a2, a, and then this. So what mean is this one, a1 mu1 plus a2 mu2 plus a3 mu3 plus a mu n plus b. So this is mu. Okay, and sigma square, because we have taken independent random variables, and therefore covariance between them will all be equal to 0, and we can find the variance of y as a square variance of x1 plus a2 square variance of x2 plus an square variance of xn. We know that b doesn't play any role in calculation of variance. Okay, so this is simply a1 square sigma 1 square plus an square sigma n square. Okay. So this result, I hope everybody understand. So let us see some problems where we can we can apply these results. So for example, we have suppose that the radius of a piston head, okay, is a random variable x1, has a mean value of 30 mm and standard deviation of 0.05 mm. Okay, and there is another random variable x2 which gives the inside radius of cylinder x2 has a mean value of 30.25 mm and standard deviation of 0.06 mm. So you can see that we have two random variables. X1 mean is 30, SD is 0.05, and X2 is random variable 30.25, and now we define a function, a random variable. Okay, this is y, which gives the difference between X2 and X1, and this in fact geometrically it is the gap between the piston head and the cylinder. Okay. So this is gap. And thus, okay, therefore has mean value. So now this is, we can see that this is sum of two random variables X2 and X1 like this. Okay, or we can think of linear combination. So this y is equal to 1 into X2 plus minus 1 into X2, sorry, X1. So this y is in fact a linear combination of X1 and X2. So mean, you just substitute X2 by its mean, X1 by its mean, and then it will be mu2 minus mu1. So this is mu2 minus mu1, and therefore 0.25. And similarly, standard deviation, or rather variance. So variance will be variance of y. This is sigma y square will be sigma x1 square, and minus 1 square is plus 1, and then 1 square is again 1. This will be sigma x2 square, right? So you just square, then it's a standard deviation 0.05, 0.06, square them and add. Okay, this one, so we get variance. Okay, and therefore what we have y is normal distribution, mean is 0.25, and variance is 0.0061. Okay, so once we know this, then we can do many things.
Sir,
So
this is the direct practical application of this, no? It is very useful in shop floor, right?
Yeah, yeah. And with these examples, we can see where everywhere we can apply all these things. Okay, whether it is a mechanical or even electrical problem or chemical problem or even civil. You see, the next problem is from civil engineering point of view. Okay, so this sigma square. Okay, so piston head radius and cylinder radius are now, if x1 and x2 are taken to be normally distributed, okay, then the gap y will also be normally distributed. Since it is obtained as linear combination of the normal random variable x1 and x2, and therefore this is what I have already said. Y is normal this, and therefore the probability that a piston head will not fit within a cylinder can then be calculated to be. So if it is not, it will not fit when if the piston radius or the gap is in fact less than or equal to 0. Okay. So gap is less than or equal to 0, it will not fit. And then you can find this probability using normal distribution. So this is y less than or equal to 0. So you know that this figure you can always draw. So this is y actually, that is equal to x2 minus x1, and this is actually its mean. So mean means this is 0.25. Okay, and then you have some standard variance is there. Now what if y is less than or equal to 0, it will not fit, and therefore y less than or equal. This is 0.25. So somewhere you will have a 0 here. Okay. So you just find this area. Okay. So we know that we can use cumulative distribution table. So this probability is nothing but phi 0. And phi 0 is 0 minus mean. Okay. Now mean we have calculated 0.25 and standard deviation. So this is actually variance. So you have to take the square root. And then we can use the normal table to find this value. This is 0.0007. Okay. Similarly, if a piston performs optimally when the gap y is between 0.10 mm and 0.35 mm. Okay. So then we can find the probability of piston performing optimally. Right? So in this case, the required probability would be y lies between 0.10 and 0.35. So you just calculate the z value here, and then here, and then subtract phi of z value here minus phi. So all these values we can obtain from the table, and then we have this probability. Okay, so you can see that 80% of the time we can expect to work piston optimally. Okay, perform optimally. So in this way, we can apply all these things result to in data analysis. Now suppose we have a wall is constructed from 24 concrete blocks as illustrated in figure 4. Now what is the distribution of the total weight of the wall? So then what we can think xi is distribution of block 1, x2 distribution of block 2. Okay, in this way x24 will be distribution of block 24. All right, and then since this wall is like this, then we can take summation of all these. Okay, to see the combined effect of these blocks. So xi, this is given in fact. So xi is this. So this is xi is what? It is weight of the individual concrete block. So xi. So every block has a mean weight 11 and standard deviation. So weight is distributed like this. So this one, and therefore weight of the wall y is sum of x1 to x24. Now this we know that if each x1, x2, x24 are normally distributed, then we prove that this sum is also normally distributed with mean mu and variance sigma square, and we know that how to find mu. So you just add the mean of all these. So this is 264, and sigma square again. Just add the variance of all x1, x2, x24. So this is given here. So these are all variance of this. So sigma square will be 2.16. So the wall has an expected weight of 264 kg. Expected mean mean weight. Okay, so this is actually mean weight of the wall, 264. And standard deviation will be 1.47 kg. So with the help of these two results, we can prove that there is about 99.7%. Now this we know, in fact, this is not proof. So this 99.7, you know that this figure you remember of a normal distribution. Okay, so this is our, say, V. So we know that how much lies here, how much lies up to 2 sigma. This is sigma, and up to 3 sigma. Okay, so this is, so this we know that up to 3 sigma, 99% of the value lies. Okay, so about 99.7% chance that the wall has weight within 3 standard deviations. Okay, of its mean value. So within mean value, within 3 sigma from mean value, there is 99% chance, or in fact 98% chance, sorry, 99.7% chance. I cannot say 100, okay, but 99.7% chance that the expected weight of the wall lie within 3 sigma. Now, what is 3 sigma here? Within 3 sigma. So this is the interval. Okay, mean value 264. So plus 3 sigma minus 3 sigma. So we get this interval. Okay, 259.59 and 268.41. Now, geometrically or physically, how to interpret this? So, contractor or builder can be confident. Confident means 99.7% confident that the weight of the wall will lie between 259 and 269 kg. So in this way, we can interpret these results. So far we have seen the sum of random variables. Now we will see averaging. Okay, if you take average of 2 random variables, or average of 3, or in general average of n random variables, then so again we have the same situation. Okay, so we want to see the distribution of x1 plus x2 plus xn by n. So this is average of n random variable, and if each of these random variables are normal random variables, then we'll see what we can do. So average. Now this value is denoted by x bar, which is average of n. So independent, identically distributed random variables So just apply the previous result. Okay. So what was the previous result? Actually, there we have y is equal to a1 x1 plus an xn plus b. All right. So in this result, take ai is equal to 1 upon n. Okay. And b is equal to 0. So if you take ai is equal to 1 upon n and b is equal to 0, this y actually becomes x bar. Okay. Now here we have seen, if this is the situation, then mu is equal to a1 mu1 plus a2 mu2 plus an mu n. Okay, and what about sigma square? So this sigma square is again a1 square sigma square plus an square. So in fact, let me write 1 to n, but all these are equal. Mu1, mu2, mu n, they are all equal to mu. Notation is slightly okay. So let it be like this only. So if all these are equal and a1, a2, an are equal to 1 by n, then you can see that this will nothing but n mu upon n, and therefore equal to mu. And similarly, if a1 square is 1 by n square, an square is 1 by n square. So this will become actually sigma summation sigma square upon n square, and that is equal to this one, because some sigma square is n sigma square. So one n will cancel out, n will get sigma square by n. All right. So you can see that if you have a random variables x1, x2, xn having mean mu n variance sigma square, so the average has mean mu, so there is no change in the mean value, but this variance is reduced actually. Okay, variance is reduced and its actual value is sigma square by n. So this is a x bar is then normal distribution having mean mu and variance sigma square by n. So this averaging reduces the variance to sigma square by n, so that the average x bar has a tendency to be closer to the mean value mu than to the individual random variables. And this tendency increases as n increases and the average of more and more random variables is taken. So if n increases, this variance, this value is going to decrease. Okay, and therefore we can say that the value will be more closer to the mean value. Okay, that is what the meaning of this. So what is this problem? Suppose that there is a probability of about 68% that a normal random variables takes a value within one standard deviation of its mean. Okay, this we know that. So that, okay, mu minus sigma, mu plus sigma, the probability is 0.68. Now if n is equal to 10, so that an average of 10 of these random variables is taken. Okay, average of 10 of this. So it's a mean value x1, x2, x10 by 10. Okay, so x1, x2, x10 by 10, that is equal to x bar. This is a normal distribution having mean mu and variance sigma square by 10. Okay. So let us now try to find the value probability x bar lies between mu minus sigma and mu plus sigma. So some notation problems are there, but because in this case, this x bar has a standard deviation SD that is equal to sigma by root 10. Okay. So this value will be replaced by sigma by group. So how this comes sigma by sigma square by 10. So let us calculate the value corresponding to mu plus sigma. Okay. So you can calculate this mu plus sigma. So this is mu plus sigma minus mu upon standard deviation. So in fact, standard deviation will be sigma square. So therefore, it comes sigma by root sigma square by 10 and then minus, because this mu will cancel here. So sigma by sigma square by 10. So you find the Z value here and then Z value here, and then take the difference. So you can see that we get the probability this 0.9984. Okay. So X bar has in fact more than 99% of chances that it lies between mu minus sigma and mu plus sigma, while individual X has chances of 68%. Okay, so you can see that if you take average, the probability increases in the same interval. Okay, so now we'll see approximating distributions with normal distribution. Okay, so these things you can read. So what it says, a very useful property of the normal distribution is that it provides a good approximation to the probability values of certain other distributions. So this is an important property. Okay, for example, we can take or we can approximate binomial distribution by normal distribution. It's a very classical example. So cumulative distribution functions is rather a complicated distribution. For example, we just take a binomial distribution. If n is large, okay, then calculating the values, even probability values of cumulative distribution functions, these are not easy. Okay, but if you approximate it by normal distribution, then things become quite easy. So this is what the meaning of these lines. So initially distribution functions were difficult to calculate, but later on it becomes easy. So VD is there, and if it n is large, then its CDF is tedious to calculate or compute. So this is one example we will see that we can approximate binomial distribution with normal distribution. But then there are other transformations can also be approximated by normal distribution. Some more general theory provided by the central limit theorem indicate that normal distribution is appropriate to approximate the distribution of an average of set of identically distributed random variables, irrespective of the distribution of the individual random variables. Okay. So what it says, average of a set of identically distributed. Average is, we have just seen average. Okay, it is x1 plus xn by n x bar. Okay, so the central limit theorem says we can approximate this random variable by normal random variables, irrespective of the distribution of the individual random variable, where each xi is normal or not. If it is not normal, then also average can be approximated by a normal random variable. If it is normal, no problem. If it is not normal, then also the average can be a normal distribution. Okay, this is the meaning. So this is normal approximation to the binomial distribution. So how it is approximated normally, let us see. So we know that binomial distribution means there are two parameters, n and p. N is the number of trials, p is the probability of success. We also know that mean of binomial distribution is np, and variance is equal to npq. Okay, and q is 1 minus. So this two things. So what we do, we simply take normal distribution whose mean is np and variance is np 1 minus p. Okay, this is. But when we calculate a probability, for example, px less than or equal to x. So in place of x, using this normal distribution, we take x is equal to x plus 0.5. This is. So this 0.5 is actually known as continuity correction factor. Continuity correction factor. Okay, because this binomial is discrete and normal is continuous. So we are moving from discrete to continuous. So this correction factor is added. So if you want to find, say, x less than or equal to 1 in binomial distribution, if you want to find probability, then it's approximating normal distribution. With the help of approximating normal distribution, if you want to calculate this, then we have to take this one as 1.05. Okay. So you just see these two things. It will be clear. So what it says, suppose this is your x, then you want to find this part, that is p capital X less than or equal to x. So this is this. In this case, we have to add 0.5 here. Okay, but if we want, say this is my x and I want this, okay, so in this case what we have to do, we have to take some area left side. Okay, this is the meaning actually. Here you have to take some area in the right hand side, here left hand side, because this area we want in discrete case actually, and therefore in continuous case, if you want to calculate or approximate this area, then you have to add some area. Okay, so in both the cases, so depending upon the point and the position of the random variable, either you have to add or subtract. So subtracting x by 0.5 means you are in fact adding some area here. Here also we are adding some area. All right. So in both the cases, we are doing the same thing. This one, this area here, this. Okay. So this is what the meaning of this, and this is the condition that this approximation works well when these values are greater than or equal to 5. So NP, that is mean is greater than or equal to 5, and 1 minus P is also greater than or equal to 5, then it works well. Otherwise, it may give some arbitrary values. So, I think, okay. So this is let us see this. So we have this binomial distribution. Mean is 60, and probability of success is 0.5. Not mean actually. This is the number of trials. This is N. This is P. Okay. So NP will be 16 into 0.5. That is equal to 8. So this is mean, and variance is NPQ. That is 4. Okay, and therefore this binomial distribution will be approximated by normal distribution having mean 8 and variance 4. Okay. So you can see that if you want to calculate this probability, so this is by binomial distribution theory. Okay, so this probability, what is B 16 0.5? So if you apply this probability x less than or equal to 5 is 1.05. Okay, but when we apply N84, this is the approximation of B16 0.5. So in this case, so this will be approximated Py less than or equal to, we have to add actually 0.5. All right. So you can see that this value is in fact 0.1056, and initially it was 0.105. So correct to 3 decimal places. Okay, so this is good approximation. So this is what central limit theorem is. Sequence of independent, identically distributed random variables with a mean mu and variance sigma square, then the distribution of their average can be approximated by this. And this we already know how to find mean and variance of average. Okay, so we have already seen that mean is mu and variance is sigma square by n. Okay, and this says sequence of independent, identically distributed random variable. So it doesn't say whether x1, x2 must be normal random variable. No, not required. So average is approximated by this normal distribution. And similarly, sum is this one. So in case of sum, we know that mean is n mu and variance is n sigma square. So this is variance. This is okay. So both sum and average can be approximated by normal distribution. Okay, whether individual distribution is normal or not, it doesn't matter. Okay, so this is what the central limit theorem is. So let us see this problem. So number of flaws in a glass sheet has a Poisson distribution with a parameter value lambda is equal to 0.5. Okay, number of flaws in a glass sheet has Poisson distribution with a parameter value lambda is equal to 0.5. This implies that both the expectation and variance are number. Okay, so this we know that this is property of Poisson distribution, that mean value and variance are same. Okay, and they are equal to actually the parameter value lambda. Since lambda is 0.5, so mean and variance will be 0.5. So what is the distribution of the total number of flaws x in 100 sheets of glass? So total number of flaws in x in 100 sheets. So this is simply addition of 1 to 100. Okay, and in this case, therefore, mean will be 100 times mu and variance will be 100 times sigma square. So both will be equal to 50. Then central limit theorem then applies to this distribution of x can be approximated by n 50-50. Okay, this is what. So in this situation, if you want to calculate or find the probability that there are fewer than 100 flaws in 100 sheets of glass, then we can approximate. Okay, so what we have to do then, we have to calculate this x less than or equal to 40, less than, fewer than, less than 40 flaws. And therefore, it is equal to pi 40 minus 50 by root 50. This is 0. So 7, or you can say 8%, almost. Okay. So there is probability of, or 8% of the time we can find less than 40 flaws in 100 sheets of glass. Now, if you take average, okay, of these 100 sheets, then in this case mu is 0.5 and sigma square upon 100 is 0.005 because sigma square is also 0.5. So you just calculate this. So the probability that this average is between 0.45 and 0.55 is therefore, so this one, about it, and with the help of this normal distribution, you can calculate that this would be approximately 0.5. That is almost 52% of the time. So what is the probability? So average number of loss between 0.45. Yes. It lies between 0.45 and 0.55 into 52%. So the key point in this probability calculation is that even though the number of laws in an individual sheet of glass follow Poisson distribution, but if you take average or sum, then it follows normal distribution. Okay. So that is the meaning. All right. So any questions?
Sir, it's nice. All central limit theorem is very important to data scientists, sir.
Yeah.
So this can we take in the next class, next topic?
Yeah. This distributions. So this
Yeah, this is very important.
I-squared distribution and F distribution. And
when we will take p values, sir, that will be an hypothesis testing, right? P value and all.
Yeah. All this chi, T, F, they're used in hypotheses, confidence interval.
Yeah.
And very little I will give a flavor of a multivariate normal distribution. So